All right. How's it going, everybody? Mike Guglielmi, Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast, episode 148, tonight, Monday night, live with my co-host and good friend, Nick Pateris. How you doing tonight, Nick?
I'm feeling good, Mike. I like the countdown era. Let everyone know when they're coming. Like, it reminds me back when we were kids and we had to time everything right for the commercial breaks to run to the bathroom and get a snack. Giving them the countdown. Very nice. We missed that in today's on-demand age, so we're gonna. I like taking it back a little bit, man. How you doing? You ready to talk some soccer?
Doing good, man. Had a productive meeting earlier tonight, and ready to talk some soccer. We had some good soccer talk last night with our Vancouver and Montreal soccer live stream reaction, and we've got lots to talk about tonight as well. So let's get right into it.
Absolutely. And for all of our viewers and listeners, if you want to join the conversation with us here at the Sons of a Pitch, if you want to reach out to Mike and I, the best way to do that is on Twitter at SOP Soccer. Either tag us, at us. Yeah, you can at us, bro. And or shoot us a direct message. We're also on Facebook and Instagram at Sons of a Pitch Soccer, and you can email us at podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. So join us along with all of our other subscribers and followers, continuing to grow the conversation of American soccer here through our little show. Now, Mike, you've got a little incentive for our listeners and viewers to join, don't you?
I do. It's a 1,000 YouTube subscriber challenge. We have been working to get to that 1,000 mark where we get monetized and get paid by some ads that will annoy the hell out of you. But either way, you'll help grow the conversation of soccer in the United States and help our business grow. So we really need your help. Make sure you subscribe. And if we do reach that 1,000 subscribers by the MLS Cup final, one will be randomly drawn to win a $250 Visa gift card. It is that easy. Subscribe to our show. You'll be entered in for a nice payday, and one lucky subscriber is going to get that money. So thank you to everybody who has subscribed and help us continue to grow. Other than that, let's start talking about some actual soccer news instead of all the promotional business we've got going on. First things first, we got a big signing in Miami.
An actual
a lot of smack
signing.
Yeah.
It's not a rumor anymore.
When the rumors came out,
huge player.
They did. And the one that I talked smack about, saying, oh, yeah, I got to wait till I see it. I'm sick of seeing all these big names come through. And then what do you know? There's a picture of the owner, Jorge Mas, and Gonzalo Higuain at the Miami International Airport. Gonzalo Higuain from Juventus, now a member of Inter Miami to help that attacking core. Nick, what are your thoughts?
So I think it's a great move. Here, let's get a little background on the deal here. Juventus bought out the last year of Higuain's contract at 50% in order to release him over to Inter Miami. He arrived in Miami on September 10th, so just a few days ago. He's got to go through the quarantine procedures and then can join the club. And then in case you didn't know, he is brother to DC United player, coach, and former Columbus Crew star Federico Higuain. So it'll be fun to see those two guys match up whenever Inter Miami and Columbus play. But here we got our slide up here with some of the stats and info on him. He's 32 years old. He was valued per Transfer Market's website at about $16.5 million. And his career has seen him play at some of the best clubs in the world, starting with River Plate in Argentina, moving to Real Madrid, then Napoli in Italy's top flight. And by the way, his what he's known for there, not only bringing Napoli up to, top 5, top 6 in that league, he once scored 36 goals in 35 games in the 2015-2016 season for Napoli. So that just tells you something. He averaged over a goal a game in one season for Napoli. Now, granted, that was 4 or 5 years ago, so he's probably not in that form. But you know what? It was good enough for Juventus to bring him over and play there. And he actually had a few loan spells out, too, to Chelsea and I forget another top club. So he is a striker of the highest pedigree. And at 32 years old, I don't like seeing MLS become a retirement league, but I don't think that's the move here, Mike. So I think, to me, that's the two types of conversations that we need to have on this transfer. One, is this a player who's just looking for a paycheck coming over to quote-unquote retire, or is he actually going to help Inter Miami score goals, win his time here? I think it's a great move. I think he's definitely not here for the paycheck. I don't think this is a retirement-type move. But what do you think, Mike? What are your thoughts on Gonzalo Higuain? Because Miami definitely needs help finding the back of the net.
No, absolutely. They really do. They've been struggling offensively. The young kids, Carranza, had some injury issues, and then Pellegrini as well, injury issues, taking some time to get used to life in MLS. But overall, I like it from the standpoint of it's a big name. It's a target man up front to play with Pizarro and the supporting cast there. I think he might be a little over the hill when it comes to those playing days. I don't think he's the same guy he was. It seemed like he kind of peaked out like 3 or 4 years ago when he was at Napoli, and as well with Real Madrid and some of the other loan spells that he had. And he's done okay at Juve, which again, doing okay at Juve is still great for MLS. So it's a good signing overall. His brother's here. Maybe he doesn't come over to just take it like it's a joke because he already knows what it's like. So that I think that'll benefit him overall. I hope it works out for Miami. These fans have been, they're a good set of fans. They're pretty rabid and crazy, and hopefully it works out for them. So that's what I'm thinking there for Gonzalo Higuain. I think he's maybe a couple years past his prime. But again, you're probably not going to get somebody coming over to MLS that's, could go to Barca or Real Madrid or Juventus or anything like that because they're playing so well. So, so that's kind of my thoughts there. Be interesting to see when he actually does get in the lineup now that he's got to go through all this quarantining business for, I don't know, is it 10 days? Is it 7 days? Is it 14 days? I mean, what are the rules? What to me, it's nuts, but that's just me. So we'll see. We'll see him on the field soon enough. I think there's talk that they at least release the schedule for the next 3 games, but it looks like there's going to be about 9 left in the regular season, is what I'm hearing. So gives him a chance to get 9 games under his belt before a possible playoff game if he can get Miami into those playoff spots. Which again, there's 10 out of 14 teams are going to be in the playoffs, so should be able to get him at least into one of those spots, you would think, with a signing like that, with the supporting cast and the talent that they do have, because they already have a pretty strong roster. I think they were unlucky to get some results early on in the season. So I think they'll be all right.
Well, right now they're, I think, the worst team in the league right now. I'm trying to recall the table after this insane amount of games that we've had over the last few days. Here we go. Inter Miami is only sitting on 8 points through 11 games. So they are the worst team in the league right now, not just the conference, worst team in the league. The only saving grace is Atlanta right now is above the playoff line with 11 points. So Inter Miami wins a couple games. Atlanta continues their struggles. Inter Miami could make that playoff picture. And then, yeah, Higuain comes in form, and he could absolutely spark something for Inter Miami, which I hope so. Like, you're right. Those fans were so worked up prior to the season kicking off. And then COVID hit, and they didn't get a home game until after the MLS is back tournament. So they haven't had a true home game for them to show just how great the fan culture already is down in Miami. So would love to see Higuain contribute to that right away. And I think that's why they brought him over here. He's a guy who can score goals right away. He's not, a 19, 20, 21-year-old development project. He is not a striker in his prime who's going to max out at possibly, a 10 or 15 goal season. Like, this guy could come in, score 10 goals in 9 games, and turn things absolutely on their head for Inter Miami. So I am very excited to see that. Any other thoughts on Higuain or Inter Miami, where they stand right now?
Just where they stand right now, you got to remember this team lost 5 straight. So, to start the season off. So out of their last few games, they've at least started to pull some results out and beat up on a pretty bad Atlanta United side. But, I think they'll be okay. I think they're going to be in contention to hit the playoffs towards the end of the 9 games.
There you go. Now we continue our trend here with transfers on expansion teams, and Nashville SC has signed forward Yonder Cadiz. I think it's Yonder. But you know what? There's the joke in there about jaundice, yellow jerseys. I'm not going to make it. But I think it's out there if there's a broadcaster just desperate enough for something on air. But as you can see on our graphic here, Yonder Cadiz signed on loan from Benfica in the Portuguese league. A lot of deals with Portugal lately. We're going to get into a few more of those later. He's a 25-year-old Venezuelan international, so he is right in the prime of his career. What stands out to me is he's already played 10 years of professional soccer. He started his first professional season at age 15 in Venezuela. Now, he wasn't getting, obviously, a lot of games or minutes or lighting up the stat sheet. He's not some sort of child prodigy. But the fact is he's been in top-flight leagues for nearly a decade. If you look at his goals scored per appearances, it's one about every 4 or 5 games or something along those lines. But obviously he's not scoring in those first couple seasons when he's only 17 or so. So he's starting to produce. Benfica said, let's make some money off this guy. Let's loan him out to the MLS. And you know what? Nashville's got the option to buy when his loan is up in June of 2021. Current value per transfer market, $2.64 million. So, Mike, if Nashville is able to snatch Yonder Cadiz up for only a couple $3 million and turn him into an all-star striker, it seems not only a great move on the pitch, but a great move in the company's books. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's a gamble. That's just what it is. Will it work out? I don't know. I really don't know anything about this kid. Haven't seen much. So I can't come out and say, yep, this guy's going to make it. He's going to be a star in MLS. Based off of, coming over from Benfica, it's a good club. You got to be decent to get a stack there. So, while you were talking there, we had a fan, Snacks Batista, jump on from Twitter, said Miami fans could be better, to be honest. So that's from what I've seen, great fans, but I'm not that in tune with it. So maybe you know something I don't, Snacks. But there's that. Overall, I think for Nashville, right now you're just kind of trying to get a feel out there. I mean, everything's been so disjointed. You're trying to build your team. You're trying to continue to get better. This is basically a TAM level player, and we'll see how it amounts. I think only time will tell on this one. That's pretty much it.
Unfortunately, that's how it goes with a lot of MLS players, especially international transfers who have to adjust to not only the style and pace of play in this league, but to playing in America. And we've said it nearly week in and week out about the travel, about the accommodations, about traveling cross-continent, about playing in so many different cities in front of so many different kinds of fans and fan culture. It's really a lot to take in, and it takes coaches and players some time to adjust. So hopefully with him going into Nashville SC, and expansion side with some veteran leadership, but also with some young up-and-coming players who'll be able to really fit in, acclimate quickly, and help Nashville, who only right now have 9 goals scored in 10 games. So they really do need something to jumpstart their offense. So Yonder Cadiz can fit that very well. Nashville's got a great core of players who, at least on paper, are a great core of players who should be able to provide him some good service and get him into good spaces. Like you said, Mike, time will only tell. Every MLS team on paper looks like they're a playoff contender or a cup winner. It's just a matter of how it plays out. And Nashville right now has been struggling. We'll see if Cadiz can jumpstart things for them. Now, moving on to the next transfer. Again, we're sticking with Portugal here, everyone. This is the big news. It's broke. I'm sure everyone's read every article about it, but we're going to give our takes on the Reggie Cannon transfer. This USMNT starting defender is transferring from Dallas to Boa Vista in the Portuguese Premier League. Now, I've heard Boa Vista's, top 4, top 6 type of team, never really competing for the title in the league, but always competing for a Europa playoff, the second tier of European competition. And last season, though, they finished 12th in the league with a negative 11 goal differential. So you've got Reggie Cannon. They were scouting defenders, and they got Reggie Cannon to come in, and hopefully he can shore up that back line, reduce some of those goals scored, continue to build his profile, improve his play, and on to bigger and better clubs in the next 2-3 years. Mike, where do you see the future of Reggie Cannon? Do you like this move for him?
I do. I think it's a good move for him to get overseas and keep building over in Europe. He came in through the Dallas Academy. He's gotten a few caps with the USMNT, and that's kind of the trajectory that you want to see these younger guys go on now to move over to Europe, continue to grow their game, and see what'll happen. I mean, Boa Vista, that's not the end goal for him, I'm sure. A decent team in the Portuguese league, which is a decent league, but not, it's not a Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, that kind of thing. So I'd like to see, him probably move on to something like that. Although I'm glad, I think he was getting kind of running his course in Dallas, both on the field and off the field. You could tell he was ready to go.
Yeah. No doubt about it. I think it's a good move, right? Because he is still so young that he could play a couple, 3 years in Portugal and then end up at a top 5 league kind of club. Or, hey, maybe he finds great success there and helps them move to the top of the table and they end up spending some money. What a lot of people are speculating, though, is he'll end up with Ligue 1 in France for Lille. The owner of Lille is either in the process of purchasing or has already purchased Boa Vista. So people are speculating that a lot of young players that they're developing or guys that want to get some extra minutes in highly competitive games are going to play at Boa Vista, prove themselves there, adjust to the European game, and then end up getting transferred to Lille and then playing in Ligue 1. Not a terrible route for Reggie Cannon, right? Like, you've got Tim Weah, who's already there, who's doing very well. You've got 2 world-class teams in Paris Saint-Germain and Monaco, right? Not to mention Lille and a handful of others who are always competing.
Lyon, Marseille, yeah.
There you go, who are always competing for Champions League spots and playing in Europa League games. So this could be a great path for Reggie Cannon to get from maybe that second tier of European clubs, Portugal, Belgium, to name a couple, and then move up into that top tier of France, Italy, Spain, England, Germany. Though a lot of people do consider Portugal to be right there, especially when you have a Spanish league that has pretty much 3 teams, a French league that maybe has 4 teams. Like the Portuguese league is very competitive in that sense, and Reggie Cannon is going to develop. He's going to develop and expand his game. Mike, any other thoughts that you've got on Reggie Cannon, or should we go to his future new teammate at Boa Vista?
Let's move right along.
Well, there you go. We've got Houston Dynamo midfielder Albert Elise, midfielder, winger, striker, wherever they want him at the time, or wherever his feet take him, more likely. He is rumored to be close to a deal to move to that same Boa Vista team alongside Reggie Cannon. So Albert Elise has always been there's always been speculation about him being transferred. He's been a standout for the Dynamo. He's been an excellent MLS player, but unfortunately, Houston just really couldn't put a complete team together to really make use of his talents. I've loved watching him, the Panther. If you remember his goal celebrations, he's so much fun to watch. He's so fast. He can always make a play. He's ready to make a highlight reel at any time. Hey, he's also ready to kind of go off on an official or get in an argument with opposing player or coach too, which also makes him exciting to watch. But the reality of it was Houston needs to either reload or rebuild or move in a different direction from where they're at right now. You've got a new coach in Todd Ramos who wants to bring up the guys that he's been developing throughout the U.S. system and, kind of leave his imprint on the Houston Dynamo himself. And Albert Elise's value is probably not going to get any better right now. In fact, it could only get worse because he'd be a free agent at the end of the current season. So get something for him, bank a few dollars, let him go to a bigger and better club and ply his trade overseas. I think it's a great move for all parties involved, especially, when they've brought in guys like Darwin Quintero, Christian Ramirez. Like, they brought in other strikers on short-term deals. So why overload your roster when you can get some money for Elise? Mike, do you think this is a good move for him, for Houston? What do you expect now moving forward?
Yeah, it's a good move for him. Gets him over to Europe. He's been talking about it for a while. He's been wanting to get over to Europe. There was some rumblings about him going to Celtic in the Scottish Premier League, but this is a good move, kind of similar level, I would say. Maybe not the nostalgia at Boa Vista that you have at Celtic, as far as history of the club, but it's still a very similar move in today's world of soccer. So overall, good move for him. He's proved himself here in MLS, and he's a hell of a player. You hate to see MLS lose the talent like that, but again, he's younger. He's moving over to Europe, and again, we've talked about it, man. We want this league to become more of a selling league, and it's doing that. So I can't be too upset about it. I know some Houston fans are a little upset because they love him, because he is such a big part of that team and has been for so long. But overall, good move for the league, good move for Albert Elise, and I'm sure Houston will make a few bucks off it and turn that money around into something good.
Right. Do you know which station has the rights to the Primeira League in Portugal? Like, we're going to have to start watching some of our MLS transfers over there, especially Boa Vista, to see Cannon and Elise, linking up on a long ball over the top to find Elise scoring a couple three like that week in and week out.
Yeah, no, it might actually be ESPN Plus. I think they do have. They have the rights to that league, but I'm not 100% sure. They've picked up a few of those leagues at that level, trying to bolster their soccer coverage. Because honestly, that's what ESPN Plus is turning into, is just a big soccer package, which I'm fine with that at $49 a year.
Oh, absolutely, man. When you can get everything from USL 1 all the way through MLS and these international leagues. And listeners, ESPN's not paying us. They're not one of our sponsors yet, hopefully.
But if they want to be a sponsor, I'm all for it. As well, if y'all are looking for any new talk show hosts, or if you want to make Sons of a Pitch Soccer a official ESPN Plus show, just call us. You can call us directly. You don't even have to go through my agent. I will talk to you directly.
There you go, Mike. You're gonna have to let me know if your agent is signing new clients as well. I might be interested.
All right.
But anyway, we're gonna shift gears a little bit here, talking MLS transfers and players, and go on the national level and talk about a headline from the National Soccer Hall of Fame. Not the greatest headline. This news broke right about the time we were recording our last episode, so it's kind of gone through the news cycle. It may be already out of your memories, but it's something we do want to talk about as we continue to have conversations on the national soccer landscape here in the United States. So the National Soccer Hall of Fame, we'll give a little background here, and this is for your trivia buffs and you history soccer fans here. The National Soccer Hall of Fame was officially recognized as the National Soccer Hall of Fame by U.S. Soccer in 1983, so not the longest history here. It's currently located at Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas, where FC Dallas plays. So if you get there early enough for a Dallas game, you can go to the Hall of Fame, or you just go online. They've got a 3D tour of the National Soccer Hall of Fame. It's pretty cool. And it's been there since 2010. Previously, it was in Oneonta, New York. But this year, it caused a stir because not only for the second year in a row was only one inductee named, Carlos Bocanegra, who deservedly gets in. There were three major snubs, according to a lot of soccer pundits, talking heads, and just fans and people like us. Hope Solo, World Cup winner, gold medal winner, and proponent for the women's game, she did not get in. Jaime Moreno, DC United, a guy who helped build the MLS, like that league
Right.
was falling apart, or he's helped solidify it in the early 90s when it started, and then brought it back to popularity when he came back later. He did not get in for some reason. And Steve Cherundolo, I wouldn't go this far, but there are some people who say he is probably the greatest outside back in USMNT history. He's got 3 World Cup appearances. He did not get in. And to make it even worse, Mike, you need 2/3 the vote to get in. You need 66.67% of the vote on the ballot to get in. Carlos Bocanegra, who appeared in 2 World Cups, who captained the U.S. for like 57 appearances or something like that, won trophies with the Chicago Fire, played at some of the biggest clubs in the world. He only got in with 68% of the vote.
Yeah.
Hope Solo 57%, Jaime Moreno 50%, Steve Cherundolo 57%. We're talking players. There were also veteran categories and builder categories. Players and coaches who are long past their careers, or builders who help develop soccer in the United States. Those are also people who can be elected into the Hall of Fame. So that's kind of the background of it all here, Mike. A lot of people are saying that the Hall of Fame needs to be held to the highest standards. So why should we let all these people in, right? That's the one side of the coin. The other side is, well, only 80% of the voters actually turned in ballots. So that's reducing your odds of getting in right off the bat. There's no repercussions for it. And by the way, 80% was the highest voter turnout ever for this vote.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And a lot of people are letting personal feelings come in. That's the other speculation. We all know Hope Solo's off the pitch troubles. And Jaime Moreno not being a U.S. citizen or playing for the U.S. national team. Some people think that may have hurt his chances. Steve Cherundolo playing the vast majority, if not his entire career, overseas may have hurt his chances. It's a little bit of that, older, insulated U.S. soccer, MLS America First type group here. So those are the two sides of it, Mike. What do you think about the Hall of Fame, its voting processes, these snubs in Solo, Moreno, and others who we can go ahead and list at the end of the segment here? What's your take on it? Do we need more transparency, or is this just how Hall of Fames need to work? And the reality is they do work that way.
Well, for me, I think I kind of stand with that side that says the Hall of Fame should be taken extremely seriously, and you need to make those expectations, those requirements very, very high in order to get there. Do a lot of these people meet those expectations? To me, honestly, no. But where I have a problem with it now is the 80% ballot rate, and that being the highest that's ever been there. That can't happen. If you want it to be taken seriously, if you want to have those requirements be high and kind of utilize that side of it, you also have to have that same side of it on the voting end that would actually take it seriously. So that's where you can't really play your cards on the one side and then have the other side not hold up their end of the bargain. So, I think a lot of things come into play. You've got a lot of things like Hope Solo, the off-field stuff, that does come into play when you're talking about the Hall of Fame. Some people think it should, some people think it shouldn't. I think it should. It's all about character. Everything comes into play when you're talking about the Hall of Fame, because that name, that person is going in to represent that body, whatever it may be, the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame, the MLB Hall of Fame, whatever. And, the requirements need to be high, and everything needs to be taken into consideration, because one thing that I hate to see is a Hall of Fame just kind of get watered down. Like, if you're a pretty knowledgeable fan of that certain sport or that Hall of Fame, you should know every single one of those people in there. And I'm pretty knowledgeable when it comes to baseball, hockey, and there's a lot of guys in each Hall of Fame there that I'm like, never heard of you. And I'm not just talking about like the 1920 guys, because obviously I'm 35 years old. I don't know everybody, from the old days. But for me, it's like, okay, the guys in the 70s, 80s, 90s that I know a lot about, how come? Why are you here? It doesn't make sense. And I think when you lighten up those restrictions and those requirements, then all of a sudden you start getting more people in. And over, at the beginning, where the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame, it is still the beginning for them. They're not as old. So you could say, yeah, go that route. But then all of a sudden you're 60 years from now, and there's tons of people who shouldn't be there. And then you can't tighten up the restrictions at that point. So I say keep the tight restrictions right from the get-go. But on the other hand, get your people to do their damn job and file a ballot as well. Absolutely, Mike.
Just to kind of, I'm not going to say disagree or counteract. The Hall of Fame has been around for decades. It was only recognized in '83 as the official U.S. Soccer National Hall of Fame, but it's been around for decades. And the inductees go back to the 1930s even. I mean, obviously that 1930 U.S. World Cup team, I think there's a number of players on that team who are in there. And right now, I mean, we've got a U.S. soccer history of over 100 years now, especially the collegiate level they were playing. And I think the first official U.S. soccer game was played against Canada, and I think it was a 1-0 loss to Canada, if I'm remembering it correctly. But that was played over 100 years ago. So we've got 100 years of soccer history, and by my rough count on the U.S. Soccer National Hall of Fame website, they have about 300 or 304 inductees already in the Hall of Fame. And if you look at the accomplishments of Hope Solo and Jaime Moreno and Steve Cherundolo, people who have had comparable careers to them are in right now. So I understand what you're saying, and character should be a part of it if that's the requirement. I could not find anything on the Soccer Hall of Fame's website that says here are the requirements for getting someone in. So I think that's part of the problem too, is that they are there's a lack of transparency here. Nobody knows what's going on. It's totally random. And apparently it's the same situation with baseball, at the very least, if not also some of the other Hall of Fame voting, that there's no accountability, no transparency. And if you just don't like the person, they're not going to get in. So I think that's part of the problem. But just to kind of throw some other numbers and names out there for you, Frankie Hayduck, an MLS legend, kind of a cult classic favorite, but also a guy who's had some USMNT success. He only got 46%. David Beckham got 45% of the vote. Other big names that we all know, Clint Mathis, Strike Force World Cup, 24%. Greg Berhalter was on the ballot as well, 22% of the vote. Eddie Lewis, Pablo Mastroianni, Josh Wolf, Brian Ching, these guys all, around the 20%, 15%. Also, Thierry Henry, 11%. Maybe if he wins an MLS Cup with Montreal and helps develop a huge pipeline of talent or something out there, he could end up maybe as a veteran or as a builder. But he's not going in as a player, that's for sure. So those are just some of the names. On the women's side of things, you have Kate Margraf, Lauren Cheney Holiday, Allie Wagner, Kat Reddick Whitehill. Those are some of the women who were on the ballots that were ranging all over from the percentage of votes in favor. So you had a lot of people who could get in there, just not the voter turnout to put in the top people there. So that's kind of my long and the short of it, Mike. You're right. Let's keep the highest standards possible, but that goes for the voters as well as the inductees.
Yeah, no, for sure. So as we come right up on our halftime break, Daniel Young is here. He is our NYCFC fan. Daniel, how you doing, man? Glad you made it. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the MLS results here shortly after this halftime break. Nick, I'm going to let you give us a sponsor break while I put the hydration break logo up. And I'm going to run upstairs really quick to pick up another cold one because I need to hydrate. Even though this doesn't really hydrate you that well, but it tastes good. So
there you go,
Mike. Hit the sponsor break, and I'll be right back.
Absolutely. We, of course, want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for letting us do what we do, but we couldn't do it without the support of our sponsors. So our hydration break here, sponsored by Skira Icelandic Natural Spring Water. Also, we'd like to thank Donovan Food Brokerage, who has been one of our original benefactors. Donovan Food Brokerage, a food sales and service company serving the Midwest, everything from K through 12 to vending services to transport to whatever you need. If you're in that industry, look up Donovan Food Brokerage online and reach out to them. They have supported what we do. They have, John has given us tons of feedback. Thank you, John. Thank you for your company as well. And depending on where you do your shopping, you can get your Skira at 7-Eleven, or you can get your nice premium Icelandic pure spring water at your local Walgreens. Again, we here make sure we stay hydrated at SOP. We've got our water companies. We've got the hydration breaks that the league has implemented. Mike is back. He's ready to go. He's got those vocal cords nice and hydrated, ready for the second half of our show here, Mike, where we get into the league roundup, where we are going to be fast and furious here, and, well, maybe not too fast. We're going to give you some breakdown analysis and maybe a few hot takes as to all things that have occurred in the last week of MLS games and matchups. So, Mike, do you want to take the first round of games here, or do you want me to throw some scores at you?
No, I'll run through them here. Got Miami, and we go all the way back to September 9th. So we got Miami and Atlanta. Miami gets a 2-1 victory over Atlanta. Minnesota and FC Dallas. Minnesota wins 3-2 at home. Then we've got Montreal and Toronto FC. Toronto FC goes on the road and wins 2-1. Colorado and Houston, 1-1 draw. And also the last game on the 9th, Real Salt Lake 3, LAFC 0. What are your takeaways from the games on September 9th?
To me, it's more of the same. Atlanta's struggling. Miami does just enough to get the points in that game. Minnesota continues to be a top team, beating Dallas. Dallas, who is now without the Cobra. Zanik and Andrasic goes to a Czech Republic club. Toronto FC, keep doing what they do, beat Montreal. Moving on to the Canadian, almost securing that Canadian championship berth from the MLS.
So fast.
No, we're not. We'll get there.
That's so fast.
Colorado, Houston, a couple of teams who are still just struggling to kind of find an identity. We know their ceiling. We know their potential. We saw Colorado realize it at the end of last season. We saw Houston do it a little earlier this season when they drubbed Sporting Kansas City like 5-2 or something like that.
Yeah,
find that consistency. Keep it going to clubs there. And then, Real Salt Lake, again, completely outperforming their talent on paper and smacking around the league's most shocking team in LAFC, who is still, by all accounts, the best team on paper. And even without a healthy Vela or Atuesta, should score a goal on Real Salt Lake, if not draw or beat them. So to me, it's a lot of the same kind of headlines that we've been seeing, just continuing to play themselves out on those September 9th games, Mike. And I always say it, you are what you are until you prove otherwise. The teams that are the best teams until they start losing. The teams at the bottom of the table, I'm not going to give you much credit until you can show you consistently win. So Real Salt Lake might be starting to win me over here a little bit, whereas LAFC is starting to drop quite a bit in my book because of their recent form over the last several weeks. Those are kind of my September 9th takes.
Okay. So, yeah, for me on September 9th, what I found interesting was it was kind of the beginning of the downfall, not the beginning, but kind of the culmination of the downfall of two of the biggest clubs in the league, right? You've got Atlanta United, who are struggling mightily, losing to Miami, an expansion team. We'll talk even more about their struggles later on in the games this week that have already happened. And, LAFC, I mean, this is a team, LAFC, after this game, but before the next game that already happened last night, this team is outside of the playoff picture in the Western Conference. That is unheard of for LAFC, and especially the same thing with Atlanta outside of the playoff picture. So this really, really interesting to me. And one of the things that I really noticed was how much those teams' amazing fans mean to them. These teams, it's a totally different world now. When you go to the Bank of California and it's dead silent because there's nobody there, it's a lot different. Same thing at the Benz. You're going to this big cavernous stadium with nobody in it. And I guarantee you, even with the same players that are on the field, the results would be different if you had 60,000 screaming Atlanta United fans and or 25,000 screaming LAFC fans with one of the best supporters groups in the league in the 32-52 or 52-32. I always get that screwed up, but I shouldn't. But they're one of the best. So to me, that's kind of seeing that downfall from those two clubs really is kind of what stood out to me in those games there on the 9th. But moving into the games on in the 10th and then on the weekend, we'll kind of go through the first 5 here. On the 10th, Seattle Sounders 7, San Jose 1. Yes, you read that correct, 7-1. They scored a touchdown in their football stadium, and like the Seattle Seahawks, and 7 goals. It was a complete beatdown. Chicago and Columbus draw 2-2. Chicago was up 2-0, and then Columbus clawed back and came back to score 2 goals at the end to tie. DC United and New York Red Bulls. Red Bulls get the victory. The new coach bounced a 2-0 victory, even though it's an interim coach. And then New York City beat Cincinnati 2-1. Cincinnati scored 1 towards the end of the game to make things interesting. Maybe I think it was like the 80th minute or so. But New York City gets the victory there, as they should. And Orlando beats Miami, so that Miami kind of uprising there with beating Atlanta a few times. They lose to Orlando, who just kind of keeps things going quietly in their decent season so far.
Yeah, Orlando City is sitting 4th in the table right now, Mike, with 19 points. It's definitely one of their better seasons, but they have to get over that midseason hump, right? Like every year, it's the year for Orlando. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to make some noise. They're going to do something. And then the second half of the season, there is just an utter collapse, and they lose like 5 in a row and can't pick up a point and just completely fall apart. So we'll see if Orlando keeps those trends going season in and season out. It's different under Oscar Pareja. It's different with the way that Nani's playing this year, that Chris Mueller's playing a much bigger role than in years past. I don't expect Orlando to completely tank, but we'll see if they can handle the success, because they haven't in years past. That Seattle game, holy cow, man. 7-1. I turned the game on around the 30th minute mark, and it was 5-0. I reset my Amazon Fire Stick, turned it back on, and it was 5-0 still. I was like, okay, I'm not seeing things. There was a clip from that game, Mike, where you would think that the Seattle players were the ones playing defense, because you had 3 Seattle strikers in the 6-yard box and not a San Jose defender in sight. It was one of the most laughable performances from a defense, if not an entire club. Seattle drops a record 7 goals on San Jose. I think that's the worst defeat in San Jose history. Wow. The Quakes, it just left completely reeling. And I kind of felt bad for them, because Seattle really was out to prove a point after dropping 2-1 to Portland, especially with Blanco going out in that game. So, they kind of took all their frustration out against the Quakes, and there you have it, Mike, 7-1, and that's kind of my takes on the games on the 12th. You want me to roll into the next slate, or what are your thoughts there?
No, I want to touch real quickly on that San Jose defense, man. Oh boy, that was ugly. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was really, really ugly. I do want to touch with Daniel Young here. He says, we still need to improve to become MLS Cup and CONCACAF Champions League contenders. Agreed, Daniel. They're not quite back yet. They're not back to what they were, but they're on the right step. And a lot of that has to do with this team is not playing in their home stadium. And we'll touch a little bit more about that with some of the Canadian teams later here in the show, that the Canadian teams in phase 2 will not be in their home stadiums. They will be playing out of USA stadiums. But they're doing okay. They're kind of coming back. They beat a decent Cincinnati team. Cincinnati's not going to light the world on fire. Maybe fight for a playoff spot. That's about it. But New York City FC is on the right track to get back. I think a few more victories over some decent teams, and they'll be right there. But overall, some of the other results, that Chicago-Columbus game, man, the fans in Chicago are going nuts. And part of me wants to jump onto that, and we'll talk more about it in our hot minute about the Chicago Fire here soon. But I'll leave that for that. I'll just leave that there. So, anyways, let's get through some of the rest of these games here. We've got Philadelphia Union with a 2-1 victory over New England. And then we've got Nashville over Atlanta. Their struggles continue, right? And then we've got FC Dallas 2-1 over Houston. Kind of a shocker there with the way Houston's been playing as well as they've been playing. And then Colorado and Real Salt Lake, 5-0 Colorado over Real Salt Lake. I watched that game, and that was just a complete beatdown of RSL. They got booed off the field, and it wasn't because of the kneelings and the anthems and all that kind of stuff. It was because they sucked. Here's a team that beats the hell out of LAFC 3-0, and then goes and lays an egg against the Colorado Rapids, who have just been struggling. I'm mind boggled. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, but then again, MLS, that's MLS, man. As that saying goes, MLS going MLS, because that's exactly what it did with those two matchups. But those are my thoughts on that one. You got any thoughts on that before we cover the games for tomorrow night?
Just the Jekyll and Hyde routine of the Western Conference, right? Salt Lake beats LAFC 3-0, loses to Colorado 5-0. Houston and Colorado draw 1-1, and then Houston drops to Dallas. And then, as we're going to see in the next slate of games, Kansas City beats Minnesota 1-0. And then LAFC beats Portland 4-2 on September 13th. Like, it's just the Jekyll and Hyde of the Western Conference right now. I don't know what to make of it. And if anyone has any sort of insight, you could probably make quite a few dollars gambling on MLS games right now. Mike, you do your picks and predictions videos on a weekly basis after our shows here. So I don't know how your record is, but I got to imagine those Western Conference games are legitimately a coin flip. Again, who knows who's going to score, who's going to be healthy, who's going to come out on top. There's really no true home field advantage due to the coronavirus requirements and protocols and things. You just got to kind of sit back and enjoy the league for the insanity that it is, Mike. So with that, I do really want to quick touch on what Daniel Young had said, because I had asked him, how is New York going to be? I think they need depth. Who do we need to look out for? So he brought up two names, Nicholas Acevedo and Tavon Gray, who are in development with New York City FC. Acevedo, an Uruguayan who was just acquired from Liverpool, the Uruguayan club, not the Premier League club, and Tavon Gray, who's 18 years old and a homegrown from the Bronx. A couple of defensive players. Acevedo is a defensive midfielder, and Tavon Gray as a defender who's got some youth national team call-ups. So those are a couple guys who can really provide some depth to New York City and, kind of provide the future of New York City there. But hey, if they get any good, odds are they're going to get flipped and sold somewhere else. And, NYCFC is going to kind of be just an investment for City Football Group, maybe not trying to win titles, right? Just that they want NYCFC as their development academy, if you want to think of it that way. So that would be the downside for me. But Mike, why don't you, if you want to give any thoughts on that or wrap up?
Yeah, I got some thoughts. I got some thoughts on that. I am not a big New York City fan. You know that. But that, I mean, dude, they're not just a kind of an investment, like, flip some guys over. These guys want to win. They want to win titles. I mean, they do. It's City Football Group. These guys win. That's what they do. They're all about winning, and I can see that. I can see them definitely, doing what needs to be done. Now you get these youngsters like Tavon Gray, I had heard of before Daniel let us know about him. Nicholas Acevedo I hadn't heard of, but these guys, they're going to come up, they're going to get some minutes, they're going to start to turn into some decent players, and then move them over to Europe, kind of like the way the league goes right now. But it's overall, I think City Football Group is in it to win it. I think they want to get some results. They've got a good base that they've got to take care of in one of the biggest cities in the world. So, I think they'll definitely more than just an investment and kind of being like, hey, let's move these guys over and get them out of there.
Well, then let me throw another
right?
scenario at you here, Mike. So if it's not just investment, if the City Football Group and New York City FC is really doing the best for their players, and these guys are really stars here and becoming the best in the MLS or whatever, then they're going to move them to one of their other bigger profile clubs because that's the best for their career development. So it's almost like New York City FC is set up to never be the best club in MLS because their best players move on because it's best for their development. It's best for the accounting of the club. It's best for the profile of City Football Group, things of that nature. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, why are they investing money in a guy like Maxi Morales? Why did they invest money in a guy like David Villa? David Villa wasn't going over to play for Manchester City. He ended up moving over to Japan after his successful run with NYCFC. I don't think, maybe with some of the younger players, you bring them over to get them a little bit developed, but they're still trying to win football games, soccer games, and that's all there is to that. Now, I wanted to touch on the piece about the betting. There is an opportunity to make some money. However, it's been kind of a rough go over the last few weeks. So tonight, for my picks later on tonight, make sure you stay tuned. Afterwards, it's a totally different show. But I will, I took a little bit less time studying everything and all that before I made my picks because the more thought that you put into it, these games have not been going the way they should be going for the most part. So I am down a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but overall, still okay. I think the best opportunities are when you have a team that is away. They still are factoring in a big portion of home field advantage into these odds. And you've got an opportunity for some of these away teams to get victories because it's really not like an away game. So so that's that on there. But overall, a few more games to touch on here before we move on. We're already at 52 minutes, and there's some other things we want to touch on. So Sporting Kansas City, a 1-0 victory over Minnesota. Vancouver and Montreal, the game we did last night. Go check out that live stream reaction, and you'll hear us talk a lot about the Vancouver Whitecaps in Montreal. 4-2 victory there for Montreal Impact. Their hopes are alive. All they need to do is win tomorrow night, and they are through for the Canadian round robin there to face the CPL side. LAFC gets back on track with a 4-2 victory over Portland, and San Jose and the LA Galaxy in the late game on Unimas was a 0-0 draw. So my takes on these, Sporting Kansas City, I expect them to do big things, being at the top of the West, and take out one of the better teams in the West. I like that. LAFC, you like to see a team get back on track. Portland, I think they played a decent game. They just got caught up in a bad 15-minute stretch there at the end of the first half, and that's what killed them. LA Galaxy, didn't watch it, 0-0. That's that.
There you go, Mike. So let me do my hot minute here on the Chicago Fire, and we kind of talked a little bit about how they were able to let the Columbus Crew come back from an early 2-goal deficit to net 2 second-half goals, and it really was, to use the cliche, a tale of two halves. As good as Chicago was in the first half, that's how good Columbus was in the second half, and it kind of canceled each other out 2-2. But what I want to talk about, one real quick thing is a change in the Chicago Fire starting lineup. You saw Jordy Mihailovic starting, gets a goal, but then also picks up an ankle injury in the 22nd minute. So I haven't followed up on that story. I don't know how bad he is or how many games he's going to miss, but hopefully he gets back to starting form because he made an impact in the 22 minutes that he played in that game. But one thing I want to point out for the Chicago Fire, on their defense, right now they have a -7 goal differential and have allowed 18 goals through their current slate of games. That's the most in the Eastern Conference. And there's a website called whoscored.com that does some advanced metrics, and they list the strengths and weaknesses of each team based on the metrics they measure. It gives you a nice little summary here. So the strengths for the Chicago Fire, counterattacks. That's it. That's the one strength. No other strengths identified by the metrics that this website has runs. Meanwhile, the weaknesses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weaknesses, all on the defensive side of the ball, except one, finishing scoring chances, which we've been saying it all season. So the Chicago Fire have a statistically poor defense, especially, it says, defending against skilled players, defending against long shots, protecting leads. That's one of the identified weaknesses for this website's metrics. So not only is the Chicago Fire defense struggling statistically and through the eye test, as we've noted in prior episodes, the defense has really kind of been neglected by the front office. Let's look at some of their scoring metrics here, especially the shot selection and the expected goals. 48% of the Chicago Fire shots come from outside of the 18-yard box, 48% inside the 18, and 5% from the 6-yard box, with a little rounding there, 101%, whatever. Half of the Chicago Fire shots are coming from outside the box. I don't know how that compares to other teams, but I'm thinking if every other shot is a 20-yard blast, you're giving the goalie a lot of opportunity, and you're giving the defenders a lot of opportunity to read the shot, to get into the shooting lanes, or to make a save on it. The Fire probably need to do a little bit better of spreading the defenses out and working passes in and out. I guess there's something to be said for the even way they've distributed their attacking outside the box and inside the box, but you're not producing. According to FBref.com, the Fire have 13.7 expected goals on the season. I'm sorry, they have 18.3 expected goals, but have only actually scored 13.7 based on the metrics. So the Fire are underperforming horribly on both sides of the ball, the offense and the defense. So that's my hot minute, Mike, on the Chicago Fire, looking at some metrics. The trends that we have seen in analyzing them are backed up by the data. If there's anything more you want to add on the Fire, by all means, please do it. At the very least, they've got to get better. And then, hey, man, bring us home. We're at that hour.
Yeah, so there's a couple things I want to chat about. One, just to wrap up with the Fire, disappointing result. The fans are frustrated. I see why. The defense is a mess. But they're it's a work in progress. I mean, this team was brought together slowly in this offseason, which I didn't think needed to happen. I think that was a mistake. But, overall, you got to give this team some time, and a season like the 2020 season is just it's not feasible. So slow down, everybody, all the Fire fans, just calm down. Use this as a building season to, work together, learn each other's game, all that kind of stuff, and come back with a strong 2021 season when things are probably going to be a little bit more normal. At least I would expect that to be the case. So that's enough on Chicago Fire. I do want to touch on phase 2, this new the next phase here, the next 3 games to finish out September. So really one thing that's very interesting to me, and it's not that interesting because we kind of saw the foreshadowing on the wall with the Toronto Blue Jays being forced to play in Buffalo. The Canadian government is hurting their own professional sports teams. Now, that's kind of how things go in the land of government. I don't think government does much to be positive and wonderful anyways, but that's just my take. So all 3 teams in Canada are now forced to play in the United States. They're home based. They're away from their families. They're away from their kids, their wives, their girlfriends, whatever, for a month, for, at least a month. We don't know what phase 3 looks like. It's probably going to be the same deal. I think we're going to see that continue on just based off of the way the borders closed and the Canadian government's been handling the COVID, which they've done a decent job in the response, with that. But overall, you've got 3 teams now. Montreal will be based out of Red Bull Arena in New Jersey. So you'll now have New York City FC, New York Red Bulls, the actual home team, and the Montreal Impact, 3 teams playing out of Red Bull Arena in MLS. Then you have Toronto FC will actually be in, hence the background back here. I'm not that stupid. I do see the goalposts over there. It's a football picture. But the reason why, and now that we're finally here 58 minutes and 50 seconds into this podcast episode, is this is where Toronto FC is going to play, in Connecticut, in Hartford, Connecticut, where – Daniel, I'm sure you're familiar. New York City FC has played a few games in that stadium. I believe it was a playoff game against the Columbus Crew a while back, too, that they played there. But, they're based out of Connecticut. What? I know there's no fans in the stands, but having 3 teams go to a different country, away from their fans, away from their friends, away from their family. How do you expect to have a real serious conversation about a season? You just can't, right? So you've got Vancouver will be then traveling down to Portland to play out of Providence Park. So these Canadian teams are being hurt by this. The Canadian government is not helping things for their professional sports teams. As Jay Jardim, our friend here from Toronto, comes on from Twitter, he says numbers are rising here, so I doubt we will see any sports in home stadiums this year. I have to agree with they're rising everywhere. And I think that's just a fact of herd immunity and kind of how things are going with the coronavirus 19, which is a common cold. Things will spread quickly. That's how it goes. But that's completely not why we're here. So we'll get out of that chat. But overall, the three Canadian teams really hurt by this. I don't know. You're playing a game. The other teams have to go to Connecticut and to Portland when they should be going to Vancouver or Toronto. So you still have to play the 90 minutes on the pitch, but it's a mess. So to me, this just continues to make this entire season a complete wash. Whatever happens. It's going to be fun to watch. Don't take anything away from that. I'll enjoy watching it. I will watch the games. We plan on doing a live for the DC United Toronto FC game next Saturday, and then the week after that, the LA Galaxy against Seattle. But it's a mess. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, they're playing in college team stadiums, playing in MLS stadiums. It's just crazy. But overall, that's all the time we've got for tonight. We've hit that hour mark. So I want to say thank you to all of our viewers, our listeners, for jumping on with us. Daniel, staying strong in the comments. Appreciate it, man. As well, Jay, thanks for hopping on with us on Twitter. And come join me in about 30 minutes for all my picks and predictions. See what I think will happen in the next week of games. And we will talk to you guys very, very soon. Again, one last shout out to our sponsors, Skira Icelandic Water at your local 7-Eleven, as well as nice premium Iceland Pure Spring Water at your local Walgreens, and Donovan Food Brokerage. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you guys very, very soon, and enjoy some soccer.